So, Daniel, appreciate you taking the time to be on the call with me today. I've been watching a lot of your videos on Bitcoin and a lot of your interviews about Bitcoin, and I really appreciate the creativity that you put into your videos and your philosophical outlook. And so I really wanted to get you on the call today to kind of pick your brain about understanding Bitcoin better. So appreciate you being here.
Okay, well, thanks.
So one of the things that I've heard you say in several interviews is that most people, including even economists and Austrian economists even, don't think deeply enough about money and what it is. And I wanted to ask you more about your ideas about that. What don't people think enough about when it comes to money?
Well, I think that the Austrian approach to economics is the correct one, and but I think that many people who are Austrians today just don't seem to understand the Austrian theory of money, and I think that I think Bitcoin is the biggest thing happening in the world right now, and it's really something that deserves to be understood and protected, and it is something that can vastly improve the world from the way it is now. And the reason that I think this has to do with my understanding of the Austrian theory of money. And and I also think that understanding the theory of money tells you a lot about how to make Bitcoin successful. So it's very useful knowledge. And I would say that basically nobody understands it. And I've really been trying to get people to engage with the ideas of the Austrian theory for my whole time in Bitcoin. And I would say that virtually nobody understands it, and people make decisions in these markets that really have nothing to do with reality and are kind of just based on craziness. And so I mean, and I would say that if you listen to people who are Austrian economists or people who say they're Austrian economists, none of them explain the Austrian theory of money correctly, and they all act like they think money is gold and they can't imagine money other than gold, and they have no way to really engage with Bitcoin economically. And there isn't the Austrian theory of money can be applied to gold, but it can be applied to all kinds of things. Lots of things can be money, and I would say that nobody understands, or almost nobody seems like they're able to apply it correctly. I mean, it's really kind of weird. It's kind of like if you really knew economics for real, like if you knew the truth about it, you should be able to do much better in these crypto coin markets than anybody else. But people seem to act like this knowledge is not good for anything, and they really just want to believe nonsense about money.
What do you think this nugget of truth is about the Austrian theory of money that you have identified, that you can see, but for some reason these other people cannot. Can you go into more detail about what that is that you're seeing that is so valuable?
Sure. Well, I mean, I would say that money is a way for large numbers of people to cooperate. So money is a cooperative system, and money creates a shared interest between people. So what we have potentially with Bitcoin is something that will align the interests of the world and make everyone want to benefit each other, and will greatly reduce the it'll greatly increase the opportunity cost of conflict. In other words, not creating conflict is going to be so much better in a Bitcoin-dominated future that people just won't want to do it as much. And that's really better than anything else that I think we could realistically have. And I would say that this idea is the core of the Austrian theory of money. Like, I would say that the Austrian theory says that the value of money is just the other people. And when we all use money, then we're all invested in each other. So I would say that that is essentially how we create better cooperation with Bitcoin. So now, if you compare Bitcoin to the kinds of money that people have used in the past, earlier forms of money are like they are a way for people to invest in each other, but it's like there's someone standing between everybody. So what they get out of it isn't something that's nearly as good. There's like a parasite on the economy that is preventing people from really gaining the benefits of each other. So this parasite is the central bank, and the central bank issues new money regularly, and that means that what it effectively means is that the money never increases in value. So you can't really benefit from saying, like, I want the other people. You know what I mean? You don't get anything out of just trying to be invested in everything else, because the central bank takes all of that away. So with Bitcoin, we don't have that. We have a fixed supply of money. So if you get Bitcoin and then the other people act really good, then you're a lot wealthier. At least that's how you would expect it to work if these markets were on a long enough scale for these markets to be rational. Because I think markets are always rational over a long enough amount of time. But it seems like it can take a long time for people to figure this stuff out. But I don't think that very many other people have really seen the potential benefit of Bitcoin in this way. People who I think ought to have already known this. So to me, like, what I'm talking about is really about the best thing that we could really have, and people are kind of treating it like that's not really what they want, or like they're trying to ruin it, really. Like they're trying to they're all after things that are sort of a lot less good than what I'm talking about.
Okay. And is what you're talking about, is this the difference between the BSV Bitcoin versus the BTC Bitcoin, or is this something else that you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. So I should have mentioned earlier. Yeah, when I'm talking about Bitcoin, I'm talking about BSV, which is the version of Bitcoin that is pursuing the original idea. So Bitcoin is an entrepreneurial idea, but it's not like a corporation. It's not like a new business. It's it is a system that anybody can work within. So you can create a business within the Bitcoin economy. But Bitcoin itself is like an entrepreneurial idea that is capable of absorbing all of the companies. And it's an idea about making fast micropayments over the internet, fast and cheap. And when we can do this, a lot of new trade opportunities open up for us because of the reduced costs. And instead of pursuing this this opportunity, people in Bitcoin have had beliefs about what is valuable that are actually anti-value, that are more like people want to fail, or they want to destroy the opportunity instead of creating it. Oh, and there's a connection between the idea of Bitcoin and Ludwig von Mises's economic calculation argument. So Mises said that the problem of socialism is due to a failure of the profit and loss system. And what we have when we can't do micropayments over the internet is the same problem as the problem of socialism. We don't have socialism because we don't have the government owning everything, but we still have the problem of socialism, which is a failure to allocate resources effectively based on the best plan. So entrepreneurs use the profit and loss system, or I should say that the profit and loss system punishes and benefits entrepreneurs based on their success at understanding the needs of the market. And when we don't have that, then we have a failure of the best plans to win out. And what we end up with are bad plans. So that's kind of what we're seeing now, because we're seeing these information companies that do not make money from serving users. In other words, the users are not customers, and they make money from selling ads instead. And so they have an incentive to control people with this model. And it's not an incentive to do what's best for people or to give them what they want. It's an incentive to turn people into a good product for advertisers. So because there isn't a market for internet content, people end up becoming like they become like domesticated animals because they become the product, and that's kind of how they're treated, and they're kind of tricked into being addicted to these platforms and being understood by them with artificial intelligence, so that the platform knows everything about them and knows what they will click on, and knows how to control their ideas. And what they want is people who think like the advertisers want them to think, not people who think, their own way and who demand, what they really want. So Bitcoin addresses this problem by opening up internet content for to a market. And of course, that's not the only thing that can be part of the Bitcoin market. We can really use it for any kind of good. It's just that we already have money that works well enough for some other purposes. But Bitcoin also has a fixed supply, as I was talking about. So it doesn't have new money being issued periodically. Or, there are Bitcoins that have not yet been claimed. They're being distributed via the mining system. But these are not new Bitcoins, and the power there's a fixed supply eventually will run out, and the power of being a central banker comes from being able to surprise people. So the original Bitcoins that are being distributed are not coming as a surprise. The release schedule was fixed from the beginning. So it's not the same thing at all. So what the incentive people have with Bitcoin that they don't have with fiat money, or the option that is open to them, is to benefit from the growth of the economy as a whole without having to get an index fund or something like that, without having to understand anything more specific about the economy. Like, we just have something that gets better if the economy gets better. And that's really something that is very good for most people. Right now, the kinds of solutions that people have to use to achieve that same end are more difficult, I would say. And there's just a more challenge to understanding or engaging with the market as a whole right now.
Okay, so I liked what you said there about how Bitcoin offers a shared interest and mutual benefits, a chance to interact with more people, have more cooperation, benefit from the creativity of other people in far off places, potentially. But what is it specifically about Bitcoin that, say, something like gold, like a digitized version of gold, would not be able to do? Is there anything specific about Bitcoin that a virtual version of gold couldn't do as well?
Well, a digital a digitized gold would have the same problems that we have always had with gold, which is that the good that people would be trading with would be a promissory note. It would be something that is, supposed to be backed by gold. But what we have seen in the past is that this system is open to abuse because, what happened in the United States is that people had they gradually had the gold backing removed from their money, and the dollars that they were trading with were replaced by a different kind of dollar that isn't a promissory note anymore. What we have with Bitcoin is just a more pure form of money. When you have Bitcoin, you have the final means of payment, and there isn't some other good that Bitcoin depends on. I mean, other than the whole economy that's being being built around it. So Bitcoin satisfies a security requirement called Byzantine fault tolerance, which means that there is it is resistant to conflicting information, which may prevent honest actors from disagreeing. So, in other words, if you're Byzantine fault tolerant, or if your system is Byzantine fault tolerant, all honest actors will agree. But what we have, or what we have seen with a gold-backed system, is that there are avenues that manipulators can use to attack the system that will prevent honest actors from agreeing, and then they get to have the gold, and the other people lose the gold backing. So we've seen attempts like this on Bitcoin, and that's what happened with Bitcoin and BTC and Bitcoin Cash. Is that we had people who were trying to control the system to bend Bitcoin to their will and change it for their own purposes. Right now, we're in the midst of attacks like this on Bitcoin. But I think that what we will see is that these attacks ultimately will not be successful, and we will see that honest actors will agree on Bitcoin. Although right now there is disagreement. It is not clear who is an honest actor just now. But what we will see is that the honest actors will, it'll be obvious who they are, and they will all agree on Bitcoin, and the manipulators will not succeed. They will end up with a system that is not valuable.
Okay, so how now you mentioned, the fact that when you're transacting in Bitcoins, there isn't anything behind it. You're actually receiving the final product. I guess to my mind, that's how I would call it, rather than having to trust that it is backed by something else. And then you mentioned that Bitcoin was vulnerable to these attacks. How vulnerable is the current implementation of BSV to these kind of takeovers and attacks going forward, would you say?
Well, I would say that BSV is still vulnerable, but I think that it'll still succeed. I think we could be doing a lot more to be resistant to attack in the future. But I think the system is secure. But what we've seen is that these attacks have been very costly, and I think that we could change things so that Bitcoin will be successful against them at much lower costs in the future. So I would like to see that happen, but I think we may have to see some more attacks before people learn how to defend them really well.
Okay. So as someone who's not really technical, could any one person just go change the code behind BSV and put it in some repository, and then now that's the latest version? Or what is the consensus mechanism for any upgrades that happen to the Bitcoin network, and how does that work?
BSV has a legal structure, the original Bitcoin had a legal structure, although because of the attacks on Satoshi Nakamoto, people didn't really get a chance to understand it very well until recently. But Bitcoin is a contract that Satoshi Nakamoto is required to fulfill according to the terms that he originally described on the Bitcoin website and in the white paper and in the original code. And what happened to him apparently is that, or I should say, this is stuff that I have heard and which I believe, but which the evidence hasn't come out yet. So potentially is not true, but I think this is what happened, is that the website was stolen, and in the meantime Satoshi was being attacked, and was not able to do as much to move Bitcoin forward for a while. So he was slowed down by people who were trying to prevent Bitcoin from succeeding his way, so that they could turn it into something different. And that's how we ended up with BTC, which well, anyways, that's not the question you are asking, though. But there's a legal structure to Bitcoin, and if it is not if the miners are not following the protocol as it is supposed to be, if they try to substitute a different good for Bitcoin, then there can be legal consequences against whoever did this. So in the case of BTC, we had a group of developers who believed that they know everything, and who believed that their ability to program gave them control over the system, and they wanted to do things differently from Satoshi's plan, and they didn't believe that Bitcoin could scale in the way that it was originally designed, and so they came up with a completely different plan, and kind of used propaganda to get approval among users for this plan, and then kind of strong-armed the miners into it. And so now my understanding is that the Bitcoin Association is charged with protecting the rules of Bitcoin, and will take legal action against future attacks, which may happen, that are similar to BTC. But I mean, we may also have attacks that are like propaganda without attempts to substitute a different good, like how we see people attacking capitalism with rhetoric all the time. So we may see people who just say that Bitcoin is very bad, and it wastes energy and things like that. So I don't know how we're going to defend against that. Well, I think we can, but there isn't a legal defense for something like that, I think. But ultimately, all of these attacks kind of boil down to propaganda, and trying to give people false ideas about the economics of the system. So, I mean, I guess what I'm doing now is preventing a propaganda attack in a way, because I'm trying to tell people what the real economics are.
Okay. So you mentioned in your Twitter profile that Bitcoin can help prevent mass scams, or proof of work can prevent mass scams. Are you talking about mass scams like some people might say the Federal Reserve System is a mass scam? Maybe religion to some people is a mass scam. Cults might be a scam. What did you have in mind when you put that in your profile.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of mass scams. And attacking Bitcoin by telling people falsehoods about it is a mass scam. And so this has to do with what I've been working on in Bitcoin. So one thing that happened when Bitcoin was being taken over is that the Reddit, well, all communication channels were basically taken over and filled up with propaganda. So the Bitcoin Talk forum and the Reddit, the subreddits were taken over, and they were filled up with deception, and people who tried to disagree were thrown out. And the reason these kind of attacks can succeed, or I should say, these attacks depend on cheap talk for being successful. In other words, they depend on the ability of people to communicate en masse with a low cost. And so there's an idea in biology called the handicap principle. And it says that the only honest signal of fitness is provable waste. So basically the idea is that if I'm throwing something away in front of you, then I must be fit. Or a better way of putting it is if I can throw away more than somebody else in front of you, then I'm probably more fit. And not because of what you see, or like what you can see gives you a reasonable gives you a reason to think that there's more. See what I mean? So if I can throw something away and you can see that, you would think that there's more that I didn't throw away. And this makes sense because people need resources to survive. So if they have some extra that they can throw away just to prove that they're fit, then they're probably fit. So Bitcoin.
So can you give an example of that? I mean, some weird things that went through my mind were like Van Gogh cutting off his ear and sending it to his girlfriend. He had so much that he was able to give it away. I mean, that wouldn't fit, but what are some things that would fit? And how do you know what's a handicap and what's not?
Okay, that is a good, yes, let's talk about examples. So this originally came from biology. So one of the original ideas was the peacock's tail. So in sexual selection, there is often a pattern where males have some beautiful display that they use to try to impress females, and then the females don't look quite as interesting as the males because they don't have to bother with that as much. So Zahavi, who's the biologist who came up with this, he would say that the peacock's tail is provable waste because the tail is made out of resources that could have been used to feed the bird, and it is used in a way that makes the male's life more difficult. So he has a heavy burden to carry around, and it's harder to fly, and it's easier for predators to catch him. So everything about the tail is sort of related to the kinds of pressures that are put on the male in life. So sexual selection is sort of like the most, the easiest kind of example to look at. But Zahavi believed that this idea applies to all kinds of interactions in the animal kingdom, or, well, all of life, really. I mean, I would say that really the handicap idea is kind of the connection between biology and physics. Because ultimately, the cost that is demonstrated by the handicap, it has to do with the resources that are necessary for life. So it connects biology, physics, and economics. And in Bitcoin, there is a need for the miners to cooperate. And there is a need for the miners to get the latest information from each other, and to get the best information quickly and easily. So similar to a peahen who wants to get the best DNA from the best males without having to work through too many other males, too many less fit males. So the miners in Bitcoin all want to know who is the most fit miner, and they want to get the latest information from this miner as quickly as possible. And part of that, well, I mean, it all has to do with profits, but because if they can get the latest blocks more quickly, then that's a little more time they can spend mining on their blocks. But it also has to do with getting good information. In other words, a miner that had invested a lot in the system would not want to screw up the system. So if you're searching for the miners who have the greatest hash power, you're finding the miners who are more likely to do the most to uphold the system. So while hash power is the costly signal in Bitcoin, and without it, we would have a similar problem to what would happen to the peacock, or the peafowl without the peacock's tail, which is that the peahens would waste a lot more time figuring out who is fit, and we would have too many less fit males in the next generation. So Bitcoin uses hash power, and the miners use it to connect to each other, and I think that we can also use hash power for honest signals of fitness in other contexts. So what I think is that if Reddit had used hash power for the upvote system, it couldn't have been taken over so easily, because the manipulators would have had to have employed more cost to talk to people, and they would not have been able to rely on cheap talk anymore. So that's kind of what I've been working on in Bitcoin, is an upvote system that uses hash power. So you can prove that energy was spent to upvote content. So I guess I should explain what hash power is. So in cryptography, we can have a handicap. So we can have provable waste with cryptography, like the peacock's tail, except it's just a message that is sent over the internet. And the way we do this is we use the properties of a cryptographic hash, which one of those properties is that the hash cannot be easily inverted. We use that to give people evidence that many hash operations were performed. And each of these hash operations has to be done by some physical machine that consumes energy. So from the information about expected hash operations, we can estimate spent energy.
Okay. Does it have to be spent energy in this system that you're talking about? I mean, if anyone's familiar, I'll put a link to the product called Twetch, which runs on the Bitcoin network, and it's similar to Twitter, but you have to pay to post there. You have to pay to like. Is that payment system similar to what you're talking about, or does it have to be expending energy?
Well, I think it has to be expending energy. So to me, so Twetch solves the problem that I was talking about earlier about being manipulated into being a good product for advertisers. Because if you're a Twetch user, you are a Twetch customer. So it's really in the incentive of the people at Twetch to just serve what you need, and they want to have all conversations on Twetch and not try to control people. But Twetch is sort of like a consumer good. It's not something that prevents misinformation. It is just something that means that the company itself does not want to manipulate you. But it doesn't mean that someone else might want to try it. And so Twetch is very cheap. Each of the posts, you can post a lot without spending very much money. So we still have cheap talk on Twetch. It's just that it's not zero cost, but it's still cheap. And the Twetch company can make a lot of money in bulk off of that. But the people talking on Twetch are not being prevented from spreading misinformation because of the cost of the Twetch. And so, I mean, I don't think that a payment is a costly signal. So you can, someone can prove to you that they made a particular payment on Bitcoin. So you can see that that they made the payment and it happened, but it could be that they're being paid back in a different payment. So you don't actually know that they have spent that money, right? It could be that they spent it and then in a different payment they're getting it back. And I would say that the cost of money is a much more difficult question than the cost of energy. And really, energy is kind of like the fundamental cost of the universe, and it's like it's something that that we all are aware of immediately, because we all need energy right here, right now. Whereas understanding the cost of money has to do with understanding the whole economy. And so I think that spending money is just not as good as a costly signal. And I mean, also, I think it's not really provable waste either, because if you spend money, somebody else gets it. So I don't think you may have lost something, but nothing has actually been wasted if you spend money. So I think that provably spent energy is a better signal of fitness, and I don't really think you could have a better one. To me, spent energy is the signal of a rational actor, because you have to have abstract thought in order to transform energy. So to me, proof of work is like it's like the peacock's tail for the highest intelligence, instead of like the healthiest bird that's the best at escaping predators. It's like the signal for the highest intelligence.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, this is why I wanted to talk with you, because I feel like you have a really interesting take, and I mean, you're bringing it back to the energy that runs the universe, that runs the world. And I don't feel like I fully grasp what you're saying, but I think that there's something there. Do you have any examples, like maybe historically, of proof of work when it comes to things like ideas or religions or things that we interact with as humans? Because you specifically mentioned that proof of work could help solve the problem of bad ideas. I think you mentioned that at one point. I mean, was Jesus dying on the cross a proof of work?
Okay, well, I will tell you my theory of Christianity. So I think that Christianity is a scam that is similar to BTC. In other words, it's an attempt to substitute something false for or to substitute something that substitute something for something else and deceive people about it. So in the past, before Christianity, we had religions that involved sacrifice. And of course, there have been cultures that used human sacrifice in the past. And There have also been animal sacrifices and corn or grain sacrifices. Just whatever things that are costly for a society have been sacrificed in public rituals in the past. If you slaughter an animal in front of lots of people, that is provable waste, and they all see it, so they know that it happened. And I think that this is a costly signal that has to do with the health of society. And in Christianity, they take away the sacrifice, and they say that we have a final sacrifice, and it is a sacrifice that you do not get to see. People claim that it happened. So to me, Christianity is like a less fit peacock that has no tail, that is trying to convince females that he has a tail and it's really beautiful, but it's invisible or something. And but I think Bitcoin brings us back to the pre-Christian way of doing things. Because now with Bitcoin, it's like we have a continual sacrifice of energy that everyone can see. And it does not happen in some kind of spiritual realm that people can't verify for themselves. I would say that Bitcoin is like a religion without ideas of the divine. It is a way of sharing an idea between everybody, kind of like a god, except that this god does not have a personality. It is a ledger, so it is a list of outputs, and amounts of coins assigned to them, and it doesn't involve some kind of divine material or something. It's just a shared idea, and it doesn't have made up ideas on physics or the nature of the universe or something. It's just a way of having a shared idea that everyone will reliably agree on. But it has the form of a religion with a sacrifice, and the sacrifice is necessary for holding it together, because without it, people wouldn't know who to listen to. The sacrifice is what connects it to reality. Remember, that's how I said, that's how you find the miners who are going to do the most to uphold the system. And you need to be able to find them quickly and easily, or else it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. How about, so you mentioned that you're working on things where proof of work could help I'd like to go down this road a little more, like where proof of work could help end mass scams. And we talked a little bit about that with Christianity, but what about ideas that are out there in the zeitgeist now, like whether or not to wear a mask? How would what you're working on help with something like that?
Yeah, that's what I think. What I'm working on can help with. So I think, I think these mass scams all involve a network topology that is dangerous, and it's basically a hub and spokes network. And the way these are created is someone kind of jumps in the center of everybody. Somebody who's a less fit male, they jump in the center and they get everybody's attention, and they get everybody dependent on them before everybody else realizes what's going on. So that's kind of what happens with these social networks. They kind of get people addicted before very many people really understand how they work. And then, since everybody is on the social network, you need to be on the social network, and then you kind of have to see the propaganda because they have the ability to control your information as long as you're engaging with the network. What we have with Bitcoin is the small world network, and the small world network has no center. Instead, there is a competition among all participants to be as central as possible. In other words, to have the most connections. And we end up with a network that has many paths between any 2 points in it. Whereas with the hub and spokes, we have a system where every path in the network goes through the hub. When in the small world network, there is always an alternate route that doesn't have to go through somebody if that somebody starts to become malicious or something. And because another difference between these networks is that in the hub and spokes, only the hub has the ability to view the network as a whole because it's connected to everybody else. Whereas in the small world network, everybody has a good view of the whole network. And what this means is that the individuals in the small world network all have an accurate representation as a whole, of the whole, whereas they do not in the hub and spokes, or not necessarily. They're dependent on the hub to give them the view of the whole, whereas in the small world they all have a view of the whole. And this makes it difficult to transmit misinformation in the small world network. Something that we need in order to create a small world network is information that everybody needs quickly, and that creates the incentive to form the small world configuration, because what everybody wants is to have the most and best connections possible so that they can get that information faster than everybody else. So in the Bitcoin network, we have blocks, and well, in the Bitcoin economy as a whole, we have the price of Bitcoin. So that's going to be a network based on whatever information is relevant to price. So a mass scam depends on doing this hub and spokes thing. So let's say you're a less fit male, and you jump in the center and get everybody dependent on you before they really know who is fit. Then you can feed people false information about the network as a whole as a way to maintain dependence. So it's just like the movie The Matrix. The Matrix is, that movie is really just like real life, because everybody is connected to the same sources of information that are all kind of presenting them with a false view of reality. And the real world is quite different from what everybody believes. But if we started signaling fitness to each other in some kind of reliable way, then we would not need to rely on sources of information. Rather, we would be able to filter out bad information ourselves, or we would have a collective system of filtering out bad information effectively. So if we had a proof of work as an upvote system, we would have a list of all content that was upvoted, and this information could come from anywhere over the internet. It would not be from some particular source of information. It would just be from anywhere. And there would just be a big competition for the information to be more highly upvoted. And the people who basically, like, the only way you could really benefit reliably from a system like this is by making society better. So people would want to spend their energy to upvote content that has good information and that transmits the true state of the world. And if that's not what the information is, then they would just rather save their money. Because the way they benefit from it is when other people read the information. If it's good then those people are better, and society is better. I guess that pretty much that answers that question.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting. It's hard to conceptualize, but I believe you have a website like this. Isn't that true? That I haven't looked into it yet, but can you tell me more? Would anyone be able to go to this and submit a link to the latest and best information, and then people click to upvote it? How does it practically work? And where could we go to test this out?
Yes, I have a website at boostpow.com, which is the name of the protocol that I came up with for this. Currently, the website doesn't work. We did have it working for a while in the past, so you can go and see what was upvoted in the past, and you can look at it historically. So you can say what was upvoted in the last year. Hopefully I'll get it working again, but for now, I can only try to communicate the idea of it. But if you look into this protocol, it's actually something that anyone can provide if they have a Bitcoin mining machine. So I would really like it if somebody were to start providing the service for me. So right now it seems like I have to provide the service to myself in order to get it. But really anybody could do it, and I would greatly appreciate competition in providing the Boost service, because I mainly would want to be able to use it. And it's just been challenging to build up the whole system and to keep it working all the time. It would be a lot easier if there was somebody else who believed that there was going to be money in this thing and was going after it independently. But I think we will have it. We will have it working eventually. I think sooner than later would be better. But if it's just going to be me doing it, it's probably going to be a lot later than I would really like.
So if people are agreeing with what you're saying and agree that this could work, what can we do as entrepreneurs or people with creative ideas to help usher this system along? Do you have to learn code, or can you just, are there plenty of people that you can pay to code to implement your idea? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that you can do costly signals just on your own. I think that they're everywhere, and I think that there is a severe labor shortage in Bitcoin, especially with programming, I think, and I think that we need programming skills from people who are actually invested in Bitcoin. In other words, people who actually want it to be successful. And it's very difficult to find a good programmer, I think. And so I would say that I would certainly like to develop a relationship with someone who could do some programming for me, but that is not an easy proposition, I would say. And it's really going to be a lot better if people learn to program on their own and try to use their skills to make their own money in an entrepreneurial way. But there, as I said, there are also costly signals everywhere, and you can easily do them just in real life, just in everyday conversation. They don't have to be produced by a machine that's specifically designed for them, although I think that would be better. But if you watch my videos, they're full of costly signals that are just done with me, just manually in the way that I make the videos. So my videos are sort of like they're sort of like journeys that are have kind of a barrier of entry, because I found that it's hard to get people to listen. So if you kind of make it into an entertaining story, you can get them to think about things they might not have on their own. But you kind of have to get invested in the video to get through the whole thing. And so there's kind of a barrier of entry that's built into the video, because you'll find that nothing much happens in them at first, or it's not really clear what the video is about for a while. It's kind of like a cost that that people can recognize. In other words, other videos that are that might be more attractive or entertaining initially exist, and I don't try to compete with those. I try to do something that that doesn't try to am I explaining this right? It's like the video isn't it doesn't do things the way a normal YouTube video might, that really needs to get the most views as quickly as possible. It's really something that if you can recognize that there's cost in that, then you know that there's probably valuable information in the video. But this is kind of a way of communicating that I would like to retire, because I think that it's going to be a lot easier if I just show cryptographically that energy was spent whenever I say something. And that's like a substitute for making these kind of elaborate videos that I do, that I think will be able to accomplish a little more easily, just because we'll have a much better signal.
Yeah. I've found your videos fascinating. I've often wondered, are you the one that makes all the animation? And I mean, it's obvious a lot of work goes into it. I often wonder, do you have a whole team behind you helping make these videos, or is it just you?
Well, some of the videos I just made myself, but my two most recent videos I had a lot of help. My most recent ones are called Bitcoin at Scale and Homo Bicoinus. So Bitcoin at Scale is a short cartoon that's a lot different from the other videos that I've done. And for that one, I got a Hollywood score from, or a Hollywood composer to do the score for me. And the art is from people, the artists who are in Bitcoin. And this composer is also interested in Bitcoin. I didn't just go out and find anybody. I only got people who actually want Bitcoin. And the previous, the other one, Homo Bicoinus, about half of the art is mine, and the rest is from various other artists. I think I have credits in these videos if you want to know who they are, or if I can answer if you have a specific thing you want to ask about. But that's not that is proof that we did work, but it's not really proof of work, because it's not provable waste. To me, that's the art and pictures are part of the entertainment of the video, and the provable waste is kind of being a bit obscure in the way that I talk about things, and creating something that you have to listen to really carefully in order to understand what I'm really saying.
Yeah. I've noticed that. Interesting. You mentioned we go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but if we had a proof of work service, then I wouldn't have to be obscure anymore. You would just read that there would be hash operations associated with what I said. But whatever. Eventually, we'll be able to do that.
Well, now that makes me a little bit skeptical when you put it like that, because, as humans, we like narratives. That's how we think. And I'm wondering, do you ever think that it could be that we will always need those narratives, and replacing it with a machine that can do this proof of work, it may not accomplish the same goal in the end?
Well, I think that no, I think we'll have better stories with proof of work. To me, proof of work is an evolution on memes, and they're like memes with antlers that signal fitness to you before they're allowed to reproduce in your brain. So they're going to be a lot better than the memes we have now. Like your brain is like the female, and the meme is like the male. And right now, we have the internet is like all of the females are really slutty, and they're not they're not rejecting bad ideas enough. So when we add proof of work to things, what that basically means is people have to think a lot more about what they say before they say it. So it's like the males are going to be rejecting themselves before they even get to the females, and that's going to be a lot better.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned these bad ideas. They get traction, and then and somehow they were able to take over even things like Bitcoin. But just as I consider myself a fairly, I guess I'm non-technical. I started getting interested in Bitcoin in around 2017, and I bought some, and I noticed that, you had to pay a lot of fees just to send it, and it wasn't instant like I had heard about. And I thought, well, I bought the Bitcoin called BTC that has that ticker symbol. And it just took me a few hours and I thought to myself, well, this is really stupid because I can't use it. And why is that? Why do you think that's so hard? Whereas BSV, you can use it. The transactions happen almost instantly. You can post things on a Twitter-like network called Twetch. It just seems to work so much better. Why is that such a hard thing for people to grasp, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have a good answer to that because, yeah, to me, the difference between them is completely obvious, and BTC is something that just doesn't work and just isn't good for anything. But they have managed to capture a lot more people's imagination. But ultimately, money is, it's really about what you can actually produce for each other. So a bunch of people who have a form of money that doesn't work, they don't really have anything. They may have a high net worth in the moment, but eventually these things are going to be understood by the market, and then they won't have anything. And yeah, I mean, I think, so there's a lot more to Bitcoin than the tech. Whatever, depending on your definition of technology. But like, we've had a big problem in Bitcoin with people who have knowledge of programming, who have convinced people that they can be leaders in Bitcoin, when really programming knowledge is more like like literacy. It's more like they can read and write. That doesn't mean that they actually know what's really important. So Bitcoin is also about law and economics and computer science. And these are all things that are not, well, of course, they're all technical in a certain sense of the word, but you don't have to be good with computers to understand any of them. Like, you don't actually have to know how the machine is actually working, right? That's really just a small part of the whole thing. So I would really like it if people would recognize that all knowledge is relevant to Bitcoin, or potentially relevant, let's say, and like whatever they can contribute is worthwhile, and it'll be a much better system when we do not have leaders who act like they know everything and convince people to treat them like they know everything, and instead we have lots of different people who are all contributing whatever knowledge they're best at. So I think that there isn't a need to act like you are apologizing for being non-technical, because I think everybody has relevant knowledge that we need.
Yeah. You mentioned a few of the names, like libertarians, prominent libertarians at the beginning of the call, that still seem to be enamored with the slower, more unreliable form of Bitcoin called BTC. And how important do you think it is to try to convince those people that there is a better form of Bitcoin and that they should be using it?
Well, I don't think that it is important at all. I think that if you have to convince people about Bitcoin, that's really just the opposite of what makes sense. People should want to make as much money as possible. That means they have to get their own information. And someone who has to be convinced is not someone who's actively researching. To me, someone who we actually want in Bitcoin is someone who does not have to be convinced. He would be someone who is searching for the best way to make lots of money, and who would figure out that that's what Bitcoin is on his own, without having to be convinced. And of course, well, I mean, I think that that's what Bitcoin is, but I would want people to independently arrive at that conclusion, and not pursue money in Bitcoin just because I said so. I would want them to figure out how to actually do it. And to me, like, if you really understood economics, you should be able to know how to do really well in Bitcoin and promote Bitcoin's success a lot. And so to me, like, Bitcoin has really shown how that just I just think that all of the economists are charlatans, really. And Bitcoin proves this, because if any of them really knew anything, they would all quit their jobs and want to be Bitcoin entrepreneurs because of their, the knowledge of economics that they supposedly have. But, and not just that. The economists have not just not quit their jobs over Bitcoin, but there has also been a shocking lack of interest by economists in Bitcoin, I would say. So to me, Bitcoin is kind of like if a new particle started showing up in particle accelerators and none of the physicists wanted to study it, and they all acted like they were trying to ignore it or something. So I think that is how economists have acted with Bitcoin. It's really like, it's really a momentous thing if you're, to have a whole new kind of money come out. It's kind of like, that ought to be a really big deal. You'd think that, if somebody had a scientific turn of mind, they would want to study it if they were an economist, because that would be like, that's just what you would want to do if you were a scientist. That would just be like the best opportunity, you would think. But that's not how economists have acted with Bitcoin. Most of the economists have ignored it or said that it's stupid, and in particular, most of the Austrians have ignored Bitcoin and have not been very interested in it. And I think that what we can see is that the Austrians do not understand their own theory of money, and they're not very good at thinking about they're not very good about thinking of money that's not gold. Like, gold is really what they know or what they think of as money, but that's not what their theory says money is, I would say. So I think that anyway, I would say if you put me in the same room with most of these modern Austrians, I think that I would be able to make it look like they don't understand their own theory. So now there have been some Austrians who have got interested in Bitcoin. So examples of these are Jeff Tucker and Safedine Amos. And Safedine is an actual professor, but I can say from my conversations with him that he doesn't know anything. I think, well, anyway, I don't think he is any good at anything. And neither of them has understood that BTC is a failure and that BSV is the real Bitcoin, even though BTC, it is easy to verify, cannot be used as money, whereas BSV can be used as money. And yeah, as you said, it's a very easy, it's very obvious and easy to see just by trying it out. So it's I don't know, to me, like the Austrians just don't seem to know their own theory. So there have been, let's see. So Peter Schiff, he's another example of somebody, well, I can say just from all of the things I've heard from him, he has never explained the Austrian theory of money in anything that I've heard from him. And Jeff Tucker has never tried to explain the Austrian theory of money to anybody in Bitcoin, as far as I know. All he does is talk about like how great the free market is and everything. But when you think about it, when you have two different, when you have competing monies, then you have a problem that's akin to the calculation problem of socialism, because you have two different competing means of, determining the best plan, as we discussed earlier. So clearly there are circumstances when or things you could have done that would have been a profit in terms of dollars, but a loss in terms of Bitcoin, depending on the timing and how much you got back in revenue, right? So profits in Bitcoin versus profits in dollars are very different things, and these different monies are different cooperative systems that are all at odds with one another. And that is all, that stuff all follows from the Austrian theory, I would say. But I don't think that people have been taking it seriously or talking about it very much, other than me, even people who ought to know better. So, so yeah, as I said, I would like to, if you put me together in a room with any of these people, I bet I could make them look like they don't know the Austrian theory very well. But to me, like, the Austrian theory is, it's the fundamental thing about success with Bitcoin, because it says what is good and bad. It's like the knowledge of good and evil, and it's it's really just absurd. It's kind of like there's so much money flying around in these crypto markets, and almost nobody is acting like they're really taking it seriously, or like they're trying to really go after, like they're trying to go after it, rationally. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to think of a real plan to try to maximize success. It's really just like everybody is acting crazy, even people who I thought would would be able to help a lot.
Right. It sounds like you're somewhat frustrated there, perhaps. You'll hear Austrians talk ad nauseum about gold, but when you've got something like BSV that is potentially infinitely better than a form of money or a form of gold, they don't pay any as much attention to as it warrants. Yeah.
Yes,
but that offers an opportunity, doesn't it, for us to buy BSV at a low price, right? Because not so many people missed it.
Yeah, well, I think that we have a problem in Bitcoin with not enough people understanding what money is really for. So I would really like to ensure that everybody understands this stuff. So there's an opportunity to get more, but I think that, there's kind of a big problem when everybody is just acting crazy. So if you do get more because you recognize the opportunity, you also have to stop everybody else from acting crazy, so that you can realize the potential of what you bought into. And so that's kind of what I've been trying to do a lot since I got into Bitcoin, but so far I haven't really accomplished too much on that front. I would say that I have found some sane people among all of the crazy ones, but I haven't really found anyone who has the time to actually learn the Austrian theory. And, I kind of went through a process of, learning how to explain it to people. Because normally if you would learn it, you would read these 1,000-page books about it and stuff. So I've had to figure out how to compress it in a few sentences. But it's really would be better if people would go back to the original books on it. And so another thing about these economists is, like, I think that economists, professional economists who are pro-free market are still toxic in a way. So they're not as bad as Keynesians, but there is still something very wrong. Because, well, as I said, like, if you really knew economics and you had a professor job, I think what you would really want to do is quit your job and be a Bitcoin entrepreneur. Because I think that you should know that there's probably a lot more money in that than in being a professor. So F.A. Hayek came up with the term spontaneous order to talk about the market. And he used it to try to explain the market to John Maynard Keynes and other people who don't like the free market as much. And it's like a beautiful concept or an image to try to communicate the idea. But when you think about it, it actually means, like, it's an image that someone would only have if they were not thinking of themselves as being part of the market. So spontaneous order of the market, that's kind of like spontaneous generation, like what people used to think would happen in trash and stuff, and they thought that, like, flies and things would just grow out of it. It's kind of like the market is the experiment and the economist is the scientist. But like, in order to have a good market system, everybody needs to create order, and it's not really very good for people to act like this order will just kind of naturally happen magically without them. And I know people don't literally think that, but I think that what we've seen with these Austrians is people who could do a lot more if they wanted to transition into being entrepreneurs in Bitcoin. But they don't want to do that, and they want to stay as professors, which lets them avoid risk and be dependent on an institution instead of going after all of that money themselves, when really, like, their own ideas should tell them that they have a comparative advantage on making Bitcoin successful. And like, if you're taking a risk that other people just don't know much about, then that's really something that you should want to do. Or if you have the option to take a risk that other people don't understand, that's what you want. You want a risk that you can calculate and other people don't know how. And when you have that, then you have a successful act of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
So, so what an economist should think, if they really understood economics, is that they understand the risk better than other people. But what they're acting like is they don't understand it better. And of course, there's more to success in the real world than just theoretical knowledge. But I mean, surely some of these economists has more than just theoretical knowledge. But to me, they're acting like they don't have more than that. Oh, and this spontaneous order thing, that's a big problem with libertarians too, because I think that there's a really big need for people to find needs that they can serve, to be entrepreneurs. Like, I think that there's a lot of unmet needs that people should be trying to go after. And like, I think that if you think that the market is a spontaneous order and you worship entrepreneurs without wanting to be one, then that's not really helping very much.
Right. So would you say that the people who really are the entrepreneurs understand Austrian economics better than these professors?
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that there are entrepreneurs in Bitcoin, and I don't know. I mean, I know some of them. I don't really think any of them understand Austrian economics. I mean, I think that there's a big need for people who understand Austrian economics to be entrepreneurs. That's not being served right now. To me, Austrian economics is critical for Bitcoin's success, and it's kind of like something that I don't think people are really doing very much. But I mean, I think Bitcoin's. I think the biggest thing that could happen to really make Bitcoin better would be for just everybody to learn economics a lot better. And of course, I think that Austrian economics is the correct theory, as I said, but I certainly would want the truth to win out. So I would encourage people to investigate lots of ideas and see if there's something that I've overlooked, because that would be, if there was something like that, that would be a way to that would be an easier way to make money than something that was already understood.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, perhaps that's something that we could explore more in a future conversation. This idea that people who believe in the ideas of freedom and liberty and free markets should put their ideas to practice more, or try to understand their own ideas better. But we're coming up on 2 hours here, and you've given me a lot to think about. I hope you've given listeners something to think about as well. Are there any parting thoughts that you have about anything that we've covered so far that you would want to leave with listeners before we end the call?
Well, I mean, I guess I would say, I mean, I wish we could just do the theory of money more like a lecture, like a professor kind of thing. And because so far we've really only done my basic explanation of it. I think it would be better if we could just go through the idea in a lot of detail. But the value of money is the other people. At least that's what I think it is. So if you want to make Bitcoin more valuable, what you have to do is improve the other people. And of course, I'm talking about value in the sense of value is what you get and price is what you pay. So value is really like the real benefit of a thing. It's not that the price is like what people think about value. The value is what's actually good about it. And so I think we could. Well, I think people in Bitcoin have always been looking outward a lot, because there's a lot of money in just getting more people in. But really, like, if we want to get more people in, what will work better is just making Bitcoin more valuable. In other words, giving people better reasons to want it. And the way we would do that is by looking inward and looking at the people who are already here, and looking at their needs and thinking about how to serve them. And not just needs that can be fulfilled by producing goods and selling it to them, but also improvements that are that just make people better people. You know what I mean? Like just anything that sort of makes people's lives better in Bitcoin. Just whatever they're most worried about. You know what I mean? Just or whatever knowledge they're lacking as well. All of that is what improves Bitcoin's value. And I think that some of the other coins have sort of figured this out in like a really rudimentary way. But what I would like to see is for people to improve value consciously. And in order to do that, they have to know what value is. And in order to know that, they have to do economics. Because economics is going to talk about the trade-offs from one good to another. And that's what we really need to think about in order to understand what really gives people good reasons to want Bitcoin. Anyway, that my theory is that we try to improve each other, and I think that. I think if you just think of it, that's kind of obvious, really. I just wish people we're just trying to do this consciously. Like I think like people kind of understand this in kind of an unconscious way, and people that all are in one of these crypto coins are all kind of like friends with each other on a certain level, and are kind of all backing each other up, but they're doing it in a way that's like about pumping the coin and not really about actually improving each other's lives. And to me, like, we could do a lot better by being more quiet, less talking about how great Bitcoin is and more just actually making it great for each other. And that would be really good even if we didn't have any new people get into Bitcoin. To me, that's really like what the real benefit of money is other people who want to think about your needs and how to serve them. And that's what I think that this is all about, really. And it's almost like the main thing has been forgotten or unknown by people this whole time. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Right. Well, I really like those ideas. I'd love to explore more with you sometime. But it's been a thrill to have you on the call today and to pick your brain. So Daniel, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for being here today.
Okay, well, thanks for inviting me, Aaron. It was nice to meet you. Great conversation. I'll see you around.